The Oakhaven docks were a splintered ribcage of rotted wood, jutting out into the black, stagnant water of the channel. The air here didn't move, it clung. It tasted of salt, brine, and something metallic, the sharp, electric tang of a coming storm that never quite arrived. Rachel stepped off the rusted iron ferry, her heavy combat boots crunching against the damp planks. Beside her, Sarah adjusted the strap of her camera bag, her knuckles white. The light of the mid-morning sun was strangled by the pervasive gray mist, a thick, rolling vapor that refused to dissipate even as the wind kicked up. "Place looks like it hasn't seen a tourist since the 80s, Sarah murmured, her voice barely audible over the rhythmic, sickening slap-slap of water against the pilings. She pulled her coat tighter, though the chill wasn't just physical. It was a pressure, a sudden weight settling onto her shoulders as if the atmosphere itself had grown denser, expectant. Rachel didn't answer immediately. She was staring out toward the silhouette of the island, a jagged tear in the horizon where Blackwood Manor stood. Her eyes, usually bright with the manic spark of the explorer, were narrowed. She felt a strange, sympathetic vibration in the marrow of her bones, a rhythmic thrumming that matched the pulse of the tide. "We're not here for the tourism, Sarah," Rachel finally said, her tone sharp, stripped of its usual bravado. She turned back to the dockmaster's shack, a leaning, moss-covered structure that seemed to groan under its own structural fatigue. The mist curled around them like inquisitive fingers. It wasn't natural fog. It felt deliberate, pulsing with a slow, hypnotic beat. Every breath Rachel took felt heavy, as if the air were saturated with the charcoal scent of burnt memories. "I know why we're here," Sarah said, though her pragmatic exterior was fraying at the edges. She scanned the shoreline. "But look at this place. Look at the water. It's not just abandoned. It's waiting. You can feel it, can't you? Like the whole island is holding its breath." "That's just the lore," Rachel dismissed, though she stepped closer to Sarah, their shoulders brushing. "The island has a reputation for being hungry. That's marketing, Sarah. Ancient, Gothic marketing to keep the locals from fishing in the forbidden zones." "Marketing doesn't make the birds stop singing," Sarah countered, tilting her head. Rachel froze. She listened. The silence was absolute. No gulls, no distant hum of traffic from the mainland, not even the rustle of dry grass. The silence was a physical barrier, isolating the dock from the rest of the world. It was a predatory stillness. "We booked the passage," Rachel said, her voice sounding unervingly loud in the vacuum. She walked toward the shack, her footsteps echoing with a hollow, metallic ring that made no sense on rotted wood. The door of the shack creaked open before she could knock. A man sat inside, huddled over a flickering lantern that produced no heat. His face was a road map of deep, dark fissures, his eyes clouded with a milky, cataracts-riddled haze that suggested he hadn't seen the true sun in years. He didn't look at them. He kept his gaze fixed on a ledger filled with symbols that looked less like names and more like sigils of containment. "The boat is ready," the man rasped, his voice sounding like dry leaves skittering over stone. "But the water doesn't like to be crossed by those who aren't meant to return." "We're just crossing," Rachel said, pulling a wad of cash from her pocket and dropping it onto the desk. The bills didn't make a sound when they hit the surface. They seemed to be swallowed by the wood. "One trip out. We'll be back before sunset." The man looked up then. His eyes focused, not on them, but on the space just behind their ears. A slow, terrifying smile spread across his face, revealing gums the color of bruised plums. "The manor doesn't keep a schedule, girl. It keeps a tally." He pointed a gnarled finger toward the far end of the dock, where a flat-bottomed skiff sat bobbing in the dark sludge. It looked less like a vessel and more like a floating coffin. "If you're going to walk into the belly of the beast, don't blame the digestion for your disappearance." Sarah grabbed Rachel's arm, her grip iron hard. "Rachel, we can turn around. The story is good, but it's not worth." "We're already here," Rachel interrupted, her resolve hardening into something colder, something jagged. She stepped toward the skiff, the mist parting before her as if acknowledging her approach. We came for the truth, didn't we? The biggest urban legend in the region? I'm not going home just because the fog is thick and the locals are eccentric. They aren't just eccentric, Sarah whispered, her eyes tracking the movement of shadows that seemed to detach themselves from the pilings and dance in the periphery of her vision. They're afraid. Look at the water, Rachel. It's not reflecting the sky. Rachel glanced down. The water was a perfect mirror, but the reflection it cast wasn't of the pier or the sky. It showed the manor, vast and looming, but in the reflection, the windows were burning with a pale, sickly violet light. There were figures, hundreds of them, crowded onto the balconies of the reflection, watching them with elongated, hungry faces. Rachel blinked, and the image vanished. The water returned to its murky, opaque black.